of a 40-year-old airplane and a gun that costs less per shot than a tank of aviation fuel. The right weapon, the right bomb, the straight open.
花山頂
Ukraine has seen all of this before. The blockades, the drone swarms, these are precisely the types of tactics that Russia has implemented against Ukraine, and Iran is following the blueprint in the Gulf. Ukraine has seen enough. After Iran armed Russia with drones, Ukraine will seek its revenge. Even the US didn't see this coming. Ukraine is doing something huge to reopen the Strait of Hormuz, and is using the lessons it learned from humiliating Russia's navy in the Black Sea to do it. Ties are being built between Ukraine and several nations in the Middle East as President Volodymyr Zelensky has confirmed that Ukraine will be providing yet more of its drone expertise to its new Gulf partners. When recently completed a visit to the Middle East, Zelensky revealed that the main topic of discussion with every new partner he met was inevitably the Strait of Hormuz and the tactics that Iran has been using to blockade that waterway. Gulf leaders need change and they need it fast. With the Strait of Hormuz blocked, they can't sell their oil and gas, which has a huge impact on their economies. Zelensky is given with a chance to build partnerships get some revenge on both Russia and Iran. Asymmetric naval strategies and the drone technology that Ukraine has used so successfully against Russia in the Black Sea were big topics of conversation, Zelensky revealed. He explained why, stating, "We raised the issue because it's painful and hot, as we can see for the whole world, because there is an energy crisis. They know that they can count on our expertise in this area." Zelensky added the Middle East nations have seen the success that Ukraine has achieved in unblocking the Black Sea corridor, and they want the details. Ukraine is sharing them, Zelensky said, and in doing so, it's making some very smart moves and see it build alliances with rich nations who can help fund Ukraine in its war against Russia. The ramifications of all this are huge, and we'll dig into them soon. But on the expertise front, nobody in the modern world knows better what it's like to have to deal with a blockade instituted by an aggressive nation than Ukraine. On March 21st, Ukraine's Foreign Minister Andriy Sybiha labelled what we're seeing in the Strait of Hormuz as painfully familiar. He said on X that Russia did the same in the Black Sea, blocked maritime trade, trying to strangle Ukraine's economy to achieve political and military goals. Indeed, Russia created a blockade around Ukraine's Black Sea ports almost from the moment that Putin launched his invasion. The blockade was a little different from Iran's. Putin has warship Black Sea fleet at his disposal, while Iran is using armed attack boats, anti-ship missiles, and drones to create its blockade. And Ukraine got the results. The blockade that Russia created cost Ukraine about $20 billion in annual revenue, much of which was focused on the grain, breadbasket in Europe, ships to buyers in Asia and Africa. And Ukraine found the solution. Using ballistic missiles such as the Storm Shadow, Ukraine started striking Russia's larger warships. The development of naval drones such as the Magura and the Seabed allowed Ukraine to conduct targeted strikes against Russian ships at port and in the Black Sea. Ukraine's constant innovation means that these drones have evolved to the point where they can even carry missiles and FPV drones. Slowly but surely, Ukraine whittled away at Russia's presence in the Black Sea. The fleet that was so dreaded at the start of Putin's invasion was chopped down in size by a third. Russia's warships have mostly withdrawn from the Black Sea due to the constant threat of Ukraine's drone-based strategy. Today, though missiles still target them, Ukraine's trio of ports in Odessa are still visited by 200 cargo ships every month, Politico reports. That's made possible because Ukraine has created a complex and layered system of cargo ship protection on top of the offensive strategy that it uses to keep the Black Sea fleet at bay. What we see here is a blueprint clearing the Strait of Hormuz. The Gulf nations that are losing money because of Iran's blockade want to get their hands on that blueprint. That blueprint is being passed on, Zelensky says. Iraq and weapons agreements have been created through Zelensky's visit to the Middle East, most of which will see Ukraine supply weapons and defense technology that it developed to combat Russia's Black Sea blockade and its drone swarms. Ukraine's president highlighted just how important this is, stating, "All agreements that will be legally formalized are extremely important for our country. Ukraine has never had such agreements with this region before." While the details of these agreements haven't been revealed, even independent reports they are currently related mostly to air defenses. Qatar, Saudi Arabia and the United Arab Emirates have all signed on the dotted line to get their hands on the expertise that Ukraine brings to the table. Zelensky adds that these new agreements are set to last at least for a decade and cover the export of Ukrainian weapons, which include air defenses, naval drones, electronic warfare and software. For their part, the Gulf nations are paying for these new weapons at least partially, using energy supplies. We assume that a financial component will also be involved, which will be a huge boost for Ukraine and its economy strains under the weight of Russia's relentless attacks. Providing weapon systems alone isn't enough for Ukraine's new partners. They need training on the techniques and tactics required to deploy those systems as effectively as possible against the threat that Iran poses in the Strait of Hormuz. Ukraine has that covered. Expert groups from Ukraine have already travelled to the Middle East to provide the benefits of their knowledge to the Gulf nations that have become Ukraine's new partners. The leaders of those nations, along with military personnel, are willing to have received that experience, Zelensky says. They should be. The Strait of Hormuz is a real problem for the Gulf nations. As the US launched Operation Epic Fury, Iran has blockaded the Strait of Hormuz, which has in turn led to enormous quantities of oil and liquefied natural gas, or LNG, failing to get to their buyers.
Yes. Narinig mo? Ito ng movie, hindi.
If you go on Amazon or walk into an appliance store right now, you will see a sea of black glass. It's modern, it's sleek, and it's incredibly confusing. On the left, I have a stove that uses space-age magnetic fields to cook food without getting hot. On the right, I have a stove that uses a light bulb to blast your food with radiation. One is called induction. The other is called infrared, or sometimes just radiant ceramic. They look the same. They both plug into the wall. They both have touchscreens. But if you buy the wrong one, you might end up with a stove that hates your pots, or a kitchen that feels like a sauna. Today, we are going to tear apart the marketing and look at the physics. We are going to explain exactly how these two technologies fight the laws of thermodynamics. We will cover the speed, the safety, the efficiency, and yes, the weird science of why one of these might melt your plastic spatula, while the other one won't even warm it up. By the end of this video, you won't just know which one to buy. You'll know exactly what is happening under that black glass every time you make dinner. First, let's address the elements in the room. Why do they look identical? Both systems use a top layer made of glass ceramic, usually a brand like Shot Ceramic. This isn't normal glass. It has a very low coefficient of thermal expansion. That's just fancy physics. Talk to me. You can get it screaming hot and then splash ice water on it, and it won't shatter. But what lies beneath that glass is what separates the past from the future. If you turn on the infrared stove, you see a bright red glow instantly. It looks like the eye of Sauron staring back at you. If you turn on the induction stove, you see nothing. No light, no glow, maybe a quiet hum. This brings us to our first physics lesson, the mechanism of heat generation. Let's start with the infrared stove. Despite the futuristic name, this is actually old-school technology wrapped in a new package. It is technically a type of electric-resistant stove. How it works. Inside the casing, usually coiled in a circle, is a ribbon of metal alloy, often nichrome, or a set of halogen bulbs filled with gas. When you send electricity through that ribbon, it fights the flow of electrons. That struggle creates friction, and that friction creates heat. But unlike the old gray coil stoves from the 1980s, these elements are designed to emit a massive amount of infrared radiation. The physics, think of the sun. The sun warms the Earth through the vacuum of space using light waves. You don't need to touch the sun to feel it. That is what the stove is doing. It is a miniature sun. 1. The element glows red hot, up to 1200 degrees Fahrenheit. 2. It shoots infrared light waves straight up. 3. These waves hit the ceramic glass. 4. The glass absorbs the energy and gets hot. 5. The hot glass touches your pot. Conduction. 6. The pot heats your food. The middleman. Problem. Notice how many steps that took? The element heats the air inside the box, which heats the glass, which heats the pot. This is a thermodynamic chain, and at every link in that chain, you lose energy. The glass acts as a massive thermal battery. It holds on to heat. This is why, even after you turn an infrared stove on, the hot surface light stays on for 20 minutes. The physics of the machine demands that the glass itself becomes the heat source. Now, let's look at induction. This is where things get weird. Induction does not generate heat. I repeat, the stove does not generate heat. It generates magnetism. How it works. Under this glass, there is a coil of copper wire. When we turn it on, we send an alternating current, AC, through that coil. This creates a rapidly oscillating magnetic field above the glass. We're talking about a magnetic field that flips north-south about 20,000 to 50,000 times per second. The physics, if you put your hand in this field, nothing happens. Your hand is not magnetic. But if you place a pan made of a magnetic material, like iron or steel, into this field, two things happen instantly. 1. Eddy currents. The changing magnetic field pushes the electrons inside the pan's metal. They try to flow in loops, eddies. But the metal isn't a perfect conductor. It resists this flow.